There comes a time in your life when the silence you carry inside becomes louder than the noise around you. And it's in that stillness, when you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop justifying, that you finally meet the strongest version of yourself. You see, the moment you become unbothered, that's the moment they lose their power over you. They can throw stones, whisper rumors, mock your growth, try to shake your spirit. But if your peace is rooted deep enough, not even the storm can touch it. People will test you. Life will provoke you. And some will spend every ounce of energy trying to pull you into chaos just to feel a little less broken themselves. But you don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them your energy. You owe yourself the freedom to rise above it. Staying unbothered isn't weakness. It's war strategy. It's knowing your worth without needing to shout it. It's walking away without slamming the door. It's choosing silence over drama, purpose over pettiness, and growth over reaction. So I want to ask you today, how powerful would you be if nothing could shake you? Because that right there is the version of you they're afraid of. They're going to come for you. Let me tell you that right now. There are people out there who won't like your light simply because they're still living in the shadows. Some folks don't know how to handle peace, so they'll try to stir up a storm in you. But what they do, what they say, that's not where your power lies. Your power starts the moment you decide how you respond. They can lie on your name, they can twist your story, they can push your buttons, but they can't write your ending unless you hand them the pen. You get to choose whether you react with fire or respond with wisdom. And when you understand that, when you internalize that truth, you don't just survive, you rise. You don't break, you build. It's not about ignoring disrespect. It's about choosing what deserves your energy, because your energy is expensive and not everybody can afford it. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them throw shade. But you stay still, stay grounded, stay aligned with who you know you are. The minute they realize you won't react, you become untouchable. Because peace in a world that feeds on chaos is the ultimate rebellion. See, we've been taught to fight fire with fire. Someone disrespects you, you clap back. Someone throws hate, you return it double. But that's exactly how they keep you trapped, by pulling you down to their level. You can't win a battle built for your destruction by becoming what they want you to become. That's how they keep control, by provoking your reaction. And every time you let them get a piece of your mind, they're taking a piece of your soul. But when you learn to pause, breathe, and choose peace over pettiness, that's when the shift happens. That's when they can't touch you anymore, because now your reaction isn't theirs to control. You're no longer a puppet on strings. You're the one cutting the cords. There's nothing more intimidating than someone who can't be moved by nonsense. They poke and you stay calm. They mock and you smile. They try to drag you down and you stay elevated. That kind of power, it's unteachable. It's built, it's earned. And you earn it every time you choose stillness over reaction. Because peace isn't weakness, it's a choice. And it's a choice that frees you. People are going to test you. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. Sometimes the ones closest to you will become the loudest enemies in your story. And you'll sit there wondering how someone who knew your heart could try to tear it apart. That's the trick, though. They want to see if you'll break. They want to pull you into the drama, into the lies, into the chaos. But here's what you've got to understand. Your reaction isn't just about the moment. It's about the message. Every time you choose not to retaliate, not to give in, not to throw back what they throw at you, you're sending a message that your spirit is stronger than their games. You're letting the universe know that you're not here to entertain petty battles. You're here to build something real, something lasting, something too powerful for distractions. And people who live in chaos, they hate peace. It makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them of everything they haven't healed. So when they try to provoke you, it's because your silence reveals their wounds. And instead of looking within, they try to drag you out. But you, my friend, you stay still. That's where your power is. Do you ever notice how the loudest people are usually the most insecure? The ones who always need to be heard, always need to prove something, always need a reaction? That's not confidence. That's chaos wearing a mask. And they want you in that same unstable space so they can control your narrative. But when you don't respond, When you don't fall into the trap, they lose their grip. See, silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. It's not about being passive. It's about being intentional. There's a difference between letting something slide and knowing something ain't even worth catching. When you react, you give them access. You invite them into your mental space. But when you stay calm, when you breathe instead of bark, when you walk away instead of war, you stay in control. And wisdom will take you places that rage never could. There is power in walking away with your dignity intact. There is power in saying nothing, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know not everything deserves your voice. Your voice is sacred. Don't waste it on people who just want to hear their own noise echoed back. They'll call you cold. They'll say you changed. They'll say you're acting different, but let them talk, because the truth is you did change. You stopped reacting. You stopped letting their chaos steal your peace. You stopped letting their small minds shrink your vision. That's what unbothered looks like. It looks like growth. It looks like maturity. And people who haven't grown will always feel threatened by those who have. See, it's not your job to explain your peace to those addicted to problems. It's not your job to make yourself smaller so others can feel bigger. Let them misunderstand you. Let them misinterpret your calm as weakness. Because the real ones know the strongest people don't need to shout. They don't need to prove. They just move. Silently, intentionally, purposefully. Your energy is a gift. Protect it. Don't spend it proving yourself to those who already decided not to understand you. Don't pour your soul into battles that don't align with your destiny. Every reaction is an investment. So before you respond, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my growth? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. Stay silent, stay strong, stay unbothered. You see, when you react emotionally, you're playing their game, and they know it. They know how to get under your skin, how to say just the right thing to light that fire in you. But that fire, if you let it burn wild, it'll consume you. It'll make you someone you're not, someone who's always at war, even when there's no battlefield. That's what they want. They want you distracted. They want you bitter. They want you exhausted from fighting battles that don't matter. Because as long as you're reacting, you're not building, you're not healing, you're not moving forward. But when you let that fire burn within, when you use it to fuel your purpose instead of your pain, now that is power. That's when the tables turn. Because suddenly, they can't figure you out. They can't pull you in. They can't control you. You've turned inward and found something they can't touch, peace. And that peace becomes your power. That peace becomes your shield. You don't have to shout to make a statement. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is to remain calm when everything around you is falling apart. That's the kind of strength they can't fake, they can't buy, and can't break. Some people will throw shade just to see if you'll step out of the light. Don't do it. Don't step down just to prove a point. That's not your job. Your job is to shine, to elevate, to stay aligned with the version of you that doesn't need to fight for approval. Reactions are expensive, and some people ain't worth the cost. Think about it. Every time you let somebody pull you into an argument, a rumor, a petty little war, you're spending energy that could have been used for your vision. That energy could have been building your dream. That peace could have been protecting your mental health. Don't waste your energy proving your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. Don't let temporary emotions cost you long-term peace. Stay in your lane. Stay in your light. When they talk, let them. When they provoke, smile. When they lie, let the truth do the talking. Because when you're focused on growth, you don't have time to wrestle with people who are comfortable being small. The moment you realize you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, you win. That's how the strong move. Quiet, focused, and free. There is a certain power in not flinching, in not showing the world your wounds every time someone presses a bruise. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet are the quietest in the room, not because they're weak, but because they've fought battles you'll never see, and they've learned not every fight deserves their presence. Being unbothered doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've felt enough to know that not everything deserves your attention. You've cried your tears, learned your lessons, and now your peace is non-negotiable. They try to get a reaction, but you already graduated from that class. You've seen the cost of giving your energy to the wrong places. You've lived through nights where your reaction stole your sleep, where your anger built more pain than healing. And now you've chosen something better. Not because it's easier, but because it's wiser. The older you get, the more you realize how expensive energy really is. And peace, that's priceless. It's not about ego, it's about elevation. And sometimes elevation requires silence. Sometimes it requires walking away with your head held high, even when your heart is heavy. That's real strength. That's real power. That's being unbothered. They'll call you names, arrogant, distant, heartless, because your peace makes them uncomfortable. They'll say you think you're better simply because you're no longer available for chaos. But that's their projection, not your problem. Don't absorb it. Don't defend yourself against noise that's not rooted in truth. The stronger you become, the quieter you get. And the quieter you get, the louder your presence becomes. You don't need to defend your character to people committed to misunderstanding you. Time will speak, truth will reveal, but while they're busy running in circles of conflict, you stay on your path. You stay rooted, because that's what control really is. Self-control. It's not about manipulating others, it's about mastering yourself. And when you do that, they can't touch you. They can't shift your mood, break your focus, or steal your joy. You've risen above. And that view, it's beautiful, but it's also lonely. Because not everyone can breathe at the altitude you're flying at now. So they'll try to pull you down. Stay up. Stay grounded in grace, in wisdom, in restraint. You're not weak for not responding. You're wise for knowing what doesn't deserve your voice. You don't need to defend your peace to people who profit from your pain. Some folks only show up to press your buttons because they know you'll react. They know they can poke you and you'll explode. And then they get to say, see, I told you they were like that. That's the setup. That's how they win. But when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you stay cool, when you stay calm, they lose. Not only do they lose the argument, they lose access to your spirit. And that's the ultimate punishment for people who feed off your reaction. Nothing drives them crazier than not being able to move you. So don't give them that control. Don't hand them your peace just to prove a point. Let them sit in their chaos while you rise in your calm. You don't need to get even. You just need to get focused. You don't need to clap back. You just need to keep walking. Because when you stop reacting, you start creating your future, your peace, your purpose. Let the world be loud. Let the noise exist. But you stay centered. Stay disciplined. Stay unbothered. That's where your real power lives. Emotional discipline is one of the most underrated and misunderstood forms of strength a person can possess. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing affects you. Rather, it's the ability to feel everything deeply and still choose how to respond. In a world that constantly provokes us through toxic people, negative environments, or overwhelming situations, the person who can remain calm and in control is the one who truly holds the power. Most people react instantly, emotionally, and often irrationally. But when you've trained your mind to pause, to breathe, and to choose your response with intention, you rise above the chaos. Emotional discipline gives you the ability to see the truth clearly without the distortion of anger, anxiety, or fear. It allows you to act from a place of wisdom rather than impulse. And in every relationship, every confrontation, every challenge, that calm presence becomes your weapon. You stop letting others dictate your mood. You stop letting circumstances shake your spirit. You begin to own your power. Because when you have emotional discipline, nothing outside of you controls what happens inside you. That's where true strength begins. The people who hurt you, the ones who betray or disrespect you, thrive off your emotional reactions. They want you to scream, to fall apart, to break down, because your pain gives them power. But when you practice emotional discipline, you take that power back. You don't lash out, you don't beg for answers, and you don't let their actions shatter your identity. You stay composed, and that composure is terrifying to those who expected to break you. It confuses them. It disarms them. It shows them that you are not easily manipulated and you are not emotionally dependent on their validation. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of attacking, you disengage. And instead of explaining your worth, you embody it through your silence and emotional control. You become unpredictable, unreadable, untouchable. Your emotional discipline tells them, you may have acted carelessly, but I choose peace over chaos. That doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're wise. Because wisdom isn't loud, and power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's found in the stillness, in the silence, in the decision to walk away with your dignity intact. Life will constantly test you. People will disappoint you, plans will fall apart, and you will face moments that push you to the edge. But emotional discipline is what keeps you from falling. It teaches you that not every emotion deserves a reaction. Not every insult needs a response. Not every trigger has to turn into a war. Emotional discipline allows you to separate what's happening from what you feel. It gives you the space to think clearly when your heart wants to react irrationally, and in that space is where you find your real power. The power to choose growth over grudges, patience over panic, and peace over proving a point. This doesn't mean you never feel angry, sad, or hurt. It means you learn to sit with those feelings without letting them control your actions. You stop being a slave to your emotions and you become the master of them. That mastery is rare. In a society that glorifies outrage and overreaction, your calm presence becomes revolutionary. Your silence becomes louder than words. Your ability to stay grounded when everything is trying to shake you, that's what makes you unstoppable. We've been conditioned to believe that expressing every emotion as it arises is healthy. And in some ways, expressing is better than suppressing. But reacting emotionally without control is not strength, it's a lack of training. Emotional discipline is not about denying your emotions, it's about developing the ability to understand them before acting on them. When someone disrespects you, the immediate urge may be to defend yourself or retaliate. But emotional discipline reminds you that sometimes the best response is no response. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them think they won. Because your peace is too expensive to waste on people who thrive on drama. Your energy is too precious to be handed out to anyone who knows how to press your buttons. When you master emotional discipline, you no longer live on the roller coaster of highs and lows caused by external forces. You create your own emotional climate, steady, balanced, and strong. People will try to provoke you, not because they care, but because your peace bothers their chaos. But when you remain unshaken, you remind them that your inner world is not available for manipulation. That is a superpower most don't even realize they need. Imagine how much more powerful your relationships would be if you had full control over your emotional responses. Instead of arguing, you'd listen. Instead of shouting, you'd reflect. Instead of blaming, you take ownership. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you never express pain. It means you express it in a way that doesn't destroy the bridge you're standing on. You don't let a moment of anger ruin years of connection. You don't let pride win over love. You understand that feelings are temporary, but the damage they cause when expressed recklessly can last a lifetime. Emotional discipline lets you press pause before saying something you'll regret. It teaches you to ask, is this worth it? Will this help or harm? That kind of awareness transforms not just your relationships with others, but your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust yourself more. You know that no matter what happens, you'll handle it with grace. And that trust becomes the foundation for confidence. Confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from knowing that you are not controlled by every passing emotion. That is the kind of confidence that draws respect and creates peace. We often think discipline is only about physical routines, waking up early, hitting the gym, eating right. But the real challenge lies in disciplining the mind and the heart. Emotional discipline is mental fitness. It's being able to face rejection and not crumble. It's being able to feel lonely without reaching for the wrong people. It's resisting the temptation to clap back, even when you have every reason to, because you know your time, your energy, your peace is too valuable. You're not out to prove anything anymore. You're not fighting battles that no longer deserve your attention. You've learned that sometimes walking away is the higher ground. Sometimes silence is your loudest statement, and sometimes peace is the best revenge. That takes training, that takes intentional effort. You have to catch yourself in moments of weakness and choose a different response. And each time you do, you build emotional muscle. You become someone others can rely on, someone who doesn't explode under pressure, someone who brings clarity to chaos. That kind of person is rare. That kind of person becomes a leader. Quiet, composed, powerful. People misunderstand emotional discipline as coldness. They think if you're not reacting, you don't care. But the truth is, it takes a deep level of care to hold back your reaction. It takes strength to absorb someone's disrespect and still walk away without matching their energy. Because emotional discipline isn't about being unbothered. It's about choosing to be unbothered. You feel the sting, you feel the pain, but you don't let it dictate your behavior. That is power. That is emotional maturity. And the people who rely on emotional chaos, who want to drag you into drama, can't handle that maturity. They want a show. They want a reaction. They want you to break character so they can feel justified in their own dysfunction. But when you stay calm, when you stay rooted, you force them to confront their own instability. You shine a light on their lack of control. And whether they admit it or not, they notice. They may not change, but they'll respect your ability to control what they cannot. That's why emotional discipline isn't just a personal asset. It's a statement to the world about who you are. The battle is always within. You can't control how others speak to you. You can't control what life throws your way, but you can always control how you respond. And that control is the birthplace of peace. Emotional discipline is what gives you that control. It gives you the power to step back from your emotions, to question them, to understand them. It helps you realize that not every emotion is true. Not every reaction is necessary, and not every situation is worth your involvement. You begin to live intentionally, not impulsively. And that shift changes everything. It changes how you experience stress, how you deal with disappointment, how you handle criticism. You start responding with purpose rather than reacting with pain. And in that space between stimulus and response, you find your freedom. Freedom from being emotionally hijacked by others. Freedom from being a puppet to your own anger. Freedom to stay steady in the storm. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means your emotions serve you instead of ruling you. And that makes you dangerous in the best way possible, because you can be manipulated or controlled. It's easy to act out when emotions are high. It's easy to say something hurtful, to send that angry text, to storm out and slam the door. But emotional discipline teaches you that easy isn't always right. It teaches you the value of delayed responses. It gives you the power to wait, to reflect, to respond only when the heat of the moment has passed. Because some things said in anger can't be unsaid. Some damage done in rage can't be undone. And when you value your relationships, your peace, your character, you learn to protect them with your discipline. Emotional discipline doesn't numb you, it strengthens you. It allows you to be fully human while staying fully in control. That kind of presence changes lives. It inspires others to grow. It builds trust because people know you won't lash out irrationally. It builds respect because people know you operate from principle, not emotion. And most importantly, it builds your legacy, because the way you handle your emotions affects every part of your life, from your career to your relationships to your happiness. Mastering that part of you is the beginning of real success. If you want to be someone who leads, someone who inspires, someone who doesn't fold when the pressure rises, you must master emotional discipline. It's not something you're born with, it's something you develop through practice. You'll fail at times. You'll catch yourself reacting. But each time you return to stillness, each time you pause before responding, you grow stronger. Emotional discipline is forged in the fire of failure, reflection, and conscious choice. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. And over time, you start to see the shift. The things that used to trigger you no longer shake you. The people who once made you feel powerless no longer have that grip on your emotions. You begin to operate from a place of clarity and stability. You become someone others look to in times of chaos. You become the calm in the storm. That doesn't just change your life, it impacts everyone around you, because emotional discipline is contagious. When people see you controlling your emotions, it gives them permission to do the same. It raises the emotional standard of your environment. That's the quiet power of a disciplined soul. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forces in human interaction. People often mistake it for weakness, for cowardice, or for defeat. But true silence, the kind that comes from strength, awareness, and emotional discipline, is not a retreat. It is a calculated pause. It's not because you run out of things to say, but because you understand the power of saying nothing at all. When you are silent, you are listening, watching, calculating. You are gathering information, observing reactions, and deciding your next move with precision. People who are addicted to noise don't understand this. They think louder means stronger. But you know that the real warrior doesn't reveal his strategy. The most dangerous person in the room is not the one yelling, it's the one who's quiet, calm, and focused. Silence gives you time. Silence gives you control. It gives you space to evaluate without being emotionally hijacked. And most importantly, it gives you power. Because silence can't be misquoted. It can't be twisted. It can't be used against you. That's why silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. You're not giving up the fight. You're just choosing when, where, and how to strike. People who underestimate your silence will often reveal themselves. The moment you stop explaining, defending, or justifying your position, the masks start to slip. Because silence removes the cover people use to hide behind words. Without your reaction to fuel their ego, they begin to panic. They start talking more, revealing more, exposing insecurities they once concealed behind accusations or manipulation. That's the beauty of silence. It forces the truth to surface. It shines a light on motives. It reveals who's authentic and who's performing. You'll find that the moment you stop reacting, people show you exactly who they are. And the ones who are uncomfortable with your silence are usually the ones who are thriving off your emotional reactions. When you remove your energy, your attention, your voice, they lose their grip. That's not surrender. That's a conscious shift in power. You're no longer playing their game. You've stepped out of the arena, and from that position, you see things clearly. You can't be manipulated when you're silent. You can't be baited when you're quiet. And you can't be controlled when you're watching from a place of clarity. That's the strategy they never expected. Not every battle deserves your sword. Some wars are designed to distract you from your path, drain your energy, and keep you emotionally entangled in cycles that go nowhere. When you choose silence, you're choosing clarity over chaos. You're refusing to engage in emotional warfare with people who aren't worthy of your energy. And that's a decision rooted in self-respect, not fear. Some will accuse you of being passive. Some will say you're weak, but strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes strength is silent. Sometimes it's in the way you walk away, in the way you protect your peace, in the way you don't rise to every provocation. Because you've learned that your energy is sacred, that your time is valuable, that your voice is powerful and shouldn't be wasted on people who only listen to respond, not to understand. Silence is your filter. It helps you separate the genuine from the manipulative. It keeps you from speaking when you're angry, reacting when you're hurt, or fighting battles that don't align with your purpose. That's not surrender, that's evolution. That's strategic restraint. You're not avoiding conflict, you're choosing not to be consumed by it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your silence. You don't have to justify why you walked away from disrespect, chaos, or manipulation. People will demand answers not because they care, but because your silence removes their control. They want to pull you back into the cycle of defense and reaction. But silence is your boundary. It says, I don't need to argue my worth. I don't need to prove my value. It speaks louder than any defense ever could. Silence is the language of self-respect. And while some see it as passive, those who understand real power know it's a calculated move. You see, there's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of wisdom. Fear silences the weak. Wisdom silences the strong. The wise know when to speak and when to let their absence do the talking. When you go silent, people start to feel your absence. They notice the peace that follows. They question their behavior. And sometimes they learn their lesson not because you told them, but because you didn't. That's the power of silence as a strategy. It teaches in a way words never could. Let them think you surrendered. Let them believe they won. Because while they're busy celebrating your silence, you're preparing, you're healing, you're planning, you're building. Real strategy happens in quiet places. Success grows in silence. Growth happens when the noise stops. You don't need to announce every move, every shift, every transformation. Sometimes your greatest breakthroughs happen when nobody's watching, because silence gives you space to reconnect with your purpose, to listen to your inner voice, to hear God's guidance without interruption. While others seek validation through noise, you're building foundation through stillness. Your silence is not absence, it's alignment. You're aligning with your values, your vision, your power. And when you emerge, you'll do so with clarity, confidence, and conviction. People will wonder how you did it, how you stayed so composed, how you turned pain into power. And the truth is, it started the moment you chose silence over reaction. You chose strategy over surrender. And that decision changed everything. You didn't lose. You just stopped playing the game. And that silence became your winning move. There is a unique strength in not needing to prove a point. When you argue with someone committed to misunderstanding you, you waste not just your words, but your soul. Silence becomes the ultimate statement. It communicates that you are no longer accessible to chaos. You're not running from the conversation. You're simply refusing to engage in cycles that only deplete you. That's the kind of decision people don't see coming. They expect a fight, they expect drama, they expect you to stoop to their level. But when you don't, when you rise above it all, when you simply walk away, your silence becomes deafening. It says everything they didn't expect to hear. You no longer control my peace. You no longer get a reaction. You no longer matter enough to disturb my spirit. That's strategy, that's power. That's the art of war practiced in the battlefield of the mind. Silence isn't just an absence of noise, it's the presence of self-control. It is your refusal to let someone else decide your emotional state. In that silence, you find strength that words could never offer. Every leader, every wise soul, every battle-tested warrior understands the role of silence. It's not about retreat, it's about recalibration. When life gets loud, when emotions rise, when voices clash, it is the one who can return to silence that survives the storm. Silence is a reset, is the space between reaction and response. It's the place where your strength is renewed, your vision becomes clear, and your next move is designed. Think of every great strategist, every successful person you admire. They all had moments where they went quiet. Not because they were done, but because they were preparing. That's what silence does. It prepares you. It trains your focus. It gives you the strength to come back stronger, smarter, and more stable than before. So never let anyone shame you for choosing silence. It's not weakness, it's wisdom in motion. And when you understand that, you stop seeking validation from noise. You stop defending yourself to people who don't deserve access to your mind. You become intentional, and that intention becomes unstoppable. Silence doesn't mean you don't feel. In fact, the most emotionally intense people often choose silence because they know the damage that words spoken in pain can do. You stay quiet not because you don't have words, but because you have too many. And you've learned that wisdom is knowing which ones are worth speaking. Silence is not emotional emptiness, it's emotional discipline. It's refusing to let temporary feelings make permanent damage. You may be screaming inside. You may feel betrayed, hurt, misunderstood, but you choose stillness because you know that silence gives birth to clarity. It allows the emotional storm to pass before you decide what to say or do. That's maturity. That's leadership. That's strength. And while others may question your silence, while they misinterpret your restraint, you know the truth. You are powerful beyond words, and that power is held not in shouting, not in arguing, not in pleading, but in your choice to respond from wisdom instead of impulse. That is a form of leadership that cannot be taught. It must be lived. There are seasons in life when silence is your best protection. When you're building something sacred, whether it's your peace, your vision, your healing, you don't need outside voices interrupting the process. You don't need approval. You don't need permission. You need focus. And focus thrives in silence. When you go silent, you stop leaking energy. You stop explaining your journey to people who were never meant to walk it with you. You stop defending decisions that were made from your soul. And in that silence, you start to remember who you really are. You reconnect with your truth. You discover how much noise was keeping you from hearing your own voice. That's the strategy. That's the hidden value of silence. It's not what you lose, it's what you gain. You gain insight, direction, clarity. You gain power, purpose, peace. While the world screams for attention, you go quiet and start listening, not to them, but to yourself. That shift is what separates the ordinary from the exceptional. That shift is what turns pain into growth, confusion into wisdom, and silence into strategy. When you master the art of silence, you begin to live life differently. You're no longer controlled by the urge to react. You're not pulled into unnecessary drama. You're not explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You choose peace over performance. You value your energy like currency, spending it only where there's a return. That's what silence teaches you. It teaches you to be intentional with your words, to make your presence felt, not by shouting, but by showing up differently. When people can no longer predict your reactions, they begin to respect your boundaries. When they can't pull you into chaos, they begin to question their own. That's what makes silence strategic. It disrupts patterns. It changes dynamics. It teaches people how to treat you without you ever saying a word. That is a level of power few ever attain. But once you taste it, once you realize you don't have to react to everything, you begin to rise, not with noise, but with purpose, not with volume, but with vision. Let the world keep talking. Let them doubt you, misjudge you, mock your silence. Because while they're busy filling the air with noise, you're filling your mind with purpose. You're preparing. You're growing. You're protecting your peace. And when the time comes when you choose to speak, to act, to move, every step you take will be with precision, backed by wisdom, grounded in truth. Your silence was never about surrender. It was always part of the plan. A quiet, powerful, intentional strategy that led you to your next breakthrough. Because in a world that screams for attention, silence is a revolutionary act of power. And you, the one who chooses it wisely, becomes unstoppable. So as we come to the close of this message, remember, your silence is not weakness, and your quiet doesn't mean you've given up. In a noisy world that confuses loudness with strength, those who master silence are often the ones thinking 5 moves ahead. You are not surrendering when you choose to step back, pause, or stay quiet. You are reclaiming your power, choosing not to waste your energy on things or people who don't deserve it. Acceptance is the first step to true power. So you can change things, allowing people your space to whom you are safe, protection from whom you can harm. That means that you decide. You are positioning yourself, not retreating. Silence gives you clarity. It reveals what's real and what's a distraction. It allows you to hear the whispers of your intuition, the voice of God, and the truth of your purpose. It protects you from being provoked, manipulated, or misunderstood. When people don't hear from you, they assume. Let them. You're not obligated to correct their assumptions. You're building in silence. You're watching, learning, and waiting for the right time to speak, to move, to act. Let them think you've surrendered. Let them misunderstand you. Because while they're watching for a reaction, you're preparing for a revolution. Strategy is power, and silence is your ally. You are not what others think you are. You are who you are becoming in the silence of your discipline, the quiet of your healing, the stillness of your growth. And when the time is right, you'll speak, not with noise, but with results. Not with arguments, but with evidence. Not with rage, but with undeniable strength. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You know who you are, and your silence declares it louder than any words ever could. Strategy is trusting that your path is sacred, and some things are better built in silence. So walk with your head high and your spirit steady. Know that silence is not the end. It's often the beginning of something greater. Let it guide you, protect you, and position you. Be calm, be patient, be wise. Your silence today is the preparation for your roar tomorrow. Thank you for spending this time reflecting, growing, and awakening your inner strategy. May your silence always serve you well. Stay strong, stay focused, and as always, may God bless you and keep you.